Hey, everybody, welcome back to Leaders Lead. I am here with Lieutenant Colonel retired John Myers. John, what's happening? How are you doing
Good,
tonight?
good, excellent. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. I don't want to talk too loud because I don't want to wake up your Weimaraner.
Yeah, I know. She's sleeping somewhere around here. She's very loud.
Right on.
She gets disturbed. So,
Yeah, we have three dogs, and it's always um, like a pick one that wants to choose to be lippy or barky at one time. So I totally get it. Hey, everybody. Super excited with our guest tonight. John has a plethora of leadership skills. He's led in some of the most amazing stories in the last 3 decades that span some of the most ridiculous situations that one could imagine in the Marine Corps. And I'm quite honest, I wish we could capture it all, but we're only going to capture a snapshot of it. So we're going to do our best tonight to pull out some of the nuggets on question number 3 out of question number 5 on Leaders Lead. Part of what your book talks about and what a little bit of this episode is going to be about is patriotism and what it means and how it's quite frankly evolved. Not going to ask you the question yet, but in your book, America to the Corpse. It's America to the Core, but I call it Corpse because that's what my daughter said. She's literal. We said this last time. Um, it talks about a gentleman who was a legit spy that you got to work on, and you happen to work on two cases. Everyone is like my generation is probably more aware of the Edward Snowden effect that happened, but they're probably less aware of the other gentleman that you had a major role um, in helping crack that case and be a part of. You want to talk
which
about
one are
that
you referring?
for just a little
Which one
bit?
are you referring to?
The guy that had multiple. Well, yeah, which guy? The one that you wrote about that had multiple on again, off again.
Yeah, yeah. Richard Hansen.
The spy that most people aren't probably aware of. Everyone's aware of like the Edward Snowden era document leak, which you were a part
Yes.
of, but not many people are probably as aware of Richard.
Yeah,
The craziness about this dude and what you helped with.
yeah. So Richard Hansen was another. Uh, he was. I think he worked at the FBI as well as the CIA, if I'm correct. And he was
Yeah.
up until Snowden released all those documents, which I can get into a whole story about that. Believe me. Um, and how he's sort of created this folk hero status when that's not really what happened. But yeah, Richard Hansen was a Russian spy who provided information to Russia for decades and was doing it to personally enrich himself and was doing it all around the Washington D.C. Northern Virginia area with the typical spy drops like you see in the movie where he would put tape on a sign to let them know that there was a new drop of classified materials hidden under a park bench in Georgetown, and the Russian agents would go over there and find the documents, just like from a movie. And this went on. It was devastating the amount of spying he did and the damage that he did. And so my involvement in it, I was a reservist for part of my career, and during one of the periods I wasn't on orders, I was working at the State Department, managing their domestic security and domestic security budget policy. Pretty boring. Of course, I took the job in July of 2001. So, 2 months later, it was not so boring managing the domestic security for the
Right.
State Department. But so Richard Hansen was,
I was in July of 2001. I was in Kuwait at Al Jaber Air Force
yeah,
Base.
I was in the States. My stepfather,
Yep.
who influenced me to join the Marine Corps because he himself was a Vietnam era Marine. His office was on the 92nd floor of the South Tower, and he was the boss of a company there,
Mm,
and they lost 13 employees. He survived,
mm.
but they lost, including the oldest person to die on 9/11, who was an engineer. I think he was 87 or something. But so Mr. Hansen, I was at the State Department, and my job was to investigate all the times that he came to the State Department and trace his actions through the State Department. Where did he go? Who did he talk to? And when I got finished with the investigation to Mr. Hansen and all the stuff he did at the State Department, the stack of papers was tracing his movements was a couple of feet high. Like the guy had been in and out of there stealing stuff for decades, and he was tried. He was found guilty, of course, and he was sentenced to life in prison. And I think he just died 6 months ago, 7 months ago, or something. But up until the Snowden release, he was, I think, the most devastating um, theft of classified materials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, he was like selling like nuclear plans and all sorts of other things to Russia, wasn't he?
Yeah, but the most damaging stuff that Hansen did, and Ames, Aldrich Ames was another, and Snowden, is to release the names of agents, not American agents, but people who are working in those countries as double agents, because they immediately get executed. And that's the real human part of it. You just see it on TV and you think, they stole some stuff about the NSA. Who cares? But people die. People died in those cases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy. As we talk about Snowden before we get into the actual question, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Sure. So I led the investigation of what he stole from the Marine Corps and the damage it caused and what we needed to do to mitigate that damage. Okay. So there was three actions we had to take. What did he take? How bad was it? And what do we do to fix it? And there's a common misconception about the guy, especially amongst far right people, which I'm conservative, but it's painful for me to see other conservatives buy into this because he's a very successful social media influencer, and he sort of created this narrative that he was a folk hero, like a Robin Hood, who exposed NSA wiretapping stuff. But you have to remember the larger picture. The Patriot Act allowed the NSA to continue listening in on Americans if they were talking to terrorists. Prior to that Patriot Act, if the NSA or the FBI heard Americans come on the line when terrorists were talking, they had to hang up. But so they had expanded wiretap capabilities under the Patriot Act. But anyways, everybody thinks that that's what he stole, but he stole millions of files. A lot of that's classified. I can't talk about it, but it exposed counterintelligence agents, American Marines, and equipment plans, and top secret stuff from all the services and nuclear material, and it wasn't just to some NSA stuff. And there was a lot of things about Snowden that people don't know. That he lied about what happened to him in the army. He said he had all these wounds from missions, but he had shin splints and got cycled out. He lied about having a degree to get a job at Booz Allen. So he got a job that required a degree, he didn't have one. And then he lied about job qualifications to try to get promotions. And then he lied to get other people's credentials so he could go into more secure spaces to steal things. And then the reason he said he started it was because he saw James Clapper on TV lying, and it made him feel like he needed to do this. But the problem is he started stealing 4 months before that. So the guy is just kind of a sleazebag, but they've painted this picture of him now as kind of a hero. But the facts just aren't there. And anybody can read the congressional report on the investigation and see that all that information is right there for you.
Wow. Yeah, that's it's really just goes to show you how quick a narrative can that somebody can take a narrative and how things can spiral so quickly
Yeah.
on the TikTok or
Oh, yeah.
the Facebook
So
or
the mitigation
all
part that
those
I talked
things.
about, there was like he exposed hundreds, if not thousands, of counterintelligence Marines. And, we had to go send people out to talk to Marines who'd been out for 5, 7, 10 years and tell them, hey, you've been exposed. You can't go overseas anymore to, Soviet Union or to Russia or to a lot of this former Soviet bloc countries. And so, some of the guys were, but that's my job. Like I travel for business, and it's like, well, you can't anymore because you've been, compromised in this giant theft. So we had to do a
Yeah.
lot of stuff like that that people don't even know about.
Wow. That's nuts. That's nuts. That guy is the opposite of what patriotism is.
Yes.
And so is Mr. Hansen, who's no longer alive, according to what we just talked about. Um, man, for guys like you and others that have dedicated their life to serving this great nation, um, what does it mean to you about patriotism? Like, and especially when you see something so against the grain. Like, can you talk like how does it make you feel, and what goes through your mind when you see the evolution or the swing of the pendulum? Like, because that's how I view it.
Yeah.
And like, there's a big swing.
Yeah.
And like, this isn't a radical thought or anything else, but like, I feel like it's less patriotic than what it was 20 years
Yeah.
ago when I joined the military.
Yeah. Well, there's everybody knows the country's divided. Um, there's a certain segment of the country, one half of the country, that is sort of embarrassed about American exceptionalism, you know, and they don't. It's almost like
Hmm.
they don't want America to be the best in so many different classifications, whether it be culture or economics or leadership or military might. It, it's almost as if they're embarrassed about it, so they see patriotism as sort of like a, a dirty word or something that's boastful or rude or arrogant, but it's really not. I mean, it's just when you live in a country that has diversity of religions, you can't tell people, hey, let's all get behind this religion so we can have some sort of moral code. But you can, patriotism is a good way for people to learn to think about something larger than themselves, a concept that's not
Yeah.
focused purely on yourself. It's, you can
Yeah.
patriotic for your country teaches you to work together towards a common cause and a common objective, which is, having a great, powerful, safe country that excels in economics and culture and leads the world, and people are, want to emulate us, and people want to, the best and the brightest want to come here. That's the result of, that's what you get at the end of being patriotic, or teaching others, young people, to be
Yeah.
patriotic. You're not creating a class of racist, arrogant people who think that we're better than everybody. You're just teaching people to work towards a common cause, which is not a bad
Yeah.
thing. It's, for
It,
some reason, it has become a bad thing to some people.
yeah. You know what I like about that message that you just said there is that common thing goes across all of those things that people believe with religion or anything else, right? That common cause. Like, I think of all the people I serve with, and they're all walks of life, right? And I think you could say this too: is all sorts of beliefs, all sorts of gender, all sorts of anything else you want to talk about. Like, check the
Yeah,
box, and you can commonly unite around the red, white, and blue, the flag,
can.
the
Yeah,
patriotism. It's uniting,
yeah, and but people
and
want to
I
find the bad
love,
in it. It seems like.
yeah, and it's divisive. So I uh, I love your explanation of it. I love the unity message. I think it's rad. I think it's spot on, and it resonates with me. Um, that's probably not
Well, it's
surprising, but
it's hard to answer that question without giving the typical responses, which, oh, because we're the best, because we have freedom, we're awesome. Like, a lot of people don't, they don't want to buy into that, because, like I said, they're embarrassed almost by American exceptionalism. But if you frame it, I mean, if you really think about it, working towards a common cause is not a bad thing. And if the common cause is
no,
having a great place to live and being a model to other countries around the world, it's not a bad thing.
no, it's a team. We're an ecosystem. We're a team, collective team, united. Right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
It's it's like you live and die by each other. Like, truly, like that's the true definition of a team. So um, I have a saying that says hashtag one team.
Right.
And I kind of mean
Yeah.
it. Like, it starts with us, starts with our local communities that we touch and we influence. We lead by that example. And you got to start with the impact that you can have around the sphere of things that you can do. And I try to show up there every day that the best I can and teach my kids that and show them in my local community. So I totally agree with you, and that doesn't mean that I'm some crazy. Um, uh, but I love trying to build that local community, and that's where it starts, and that's where it gets infectious, and that's where it starts to gain momentum, and that's where it gets um you start to get the greater
Yeah.
cause. And you can't wait for the top to do it. You got to do it local, and then it starts to gain
Yeah.
momentum.
I think we become a society where everybody's concerned about themselves first. And I get it. We're a country of individual rights,
Yeah,
granted by God through the Constitution, according to the words of the drafters of the Constitution. And I
yep,
get it. We're a country of individual rights, but we're not a country of selfish individualism. And I think there's no harm in teaching young people to think of something greater than themselves. That's basically,
no,
you know,
I completely agree with you. Hey, John, this was awesome. Thanks for sharing the behind the scenes, behind the pages, in between the lines of the book. I think it was rad. I learned something new every time I talk to you. Um, what can we do to help you? What can we do to support you? I mean, you've done so much for this nation. What can people do that are listening to this? How can we help you?
you know um, as I said previously, I'm running for Congress. So if people want to come to my webpage, Myers for Virginia, read about my issues, send me a note, give me a call, you know, um,
Yeah,
tell me how you'd like to help or how I can help you. And that would be great.
yeah. I'll put that in the comments below when I post this, so that way people can see it and they get it right. They can just click on it.
Yeah,
Yeah. You also said that you're pretty passionate about veteran stuff. Um, you want to talk about that at all?
absolutely. Check out No Fallen Heroes, which is a nonprofit run by a friend of mine, Matt Wiz Buckley, former fighter pilot, who now owns a couple of his own fighter jets. Very successful career, and he uses those jets. He has them painted in the No Fallen Heroes scheme, and he uses them to promote his charity or his nonprofit. Trying to get up in the jet. I haven't been in the jet, so you're not getting up there till after I get up there, at least. But yeah, so he fights veteran suicide and PTSD. Check it out.
Yeah, man. He has a couple fighter
Yeah,
jets. That's rad.
isn't yeah? It's funny
That's a
because
dream of mine.
I once bragged him up online or something, and I said, check out. Here's my friend Matt Buckley. He's got his own fighter jet, and he chimed in and went, "Actually, I have two."
Yeah, if you're gonna brag me up, get it right.
Yeah,
That's awesome. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in for episode 3 out of episode 5 on Leaders Lead. We're looking forward to having you back for episode 4. Hey, John, thanks for sticking with us. We're at the halfway point. We got 2 more. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.